Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CRIMSI informational webinar. This webinar will provide you with an overview of LASO Decision 1A. Before we begin, we would love if you could update your name to include the name of your LEA or campus using the instructions on the screen so that we can know who all is present. Now that I know who all of you are, I would like to introduce myself. For those of you who have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Taquana Williams. You may have received emails from me in the past, but I serve as the Director of Academics at TNTP. I am currently based out of Houston, Texas, and have worked in several roles in education prior to joining TNTP's staff. As a part of TNTP, we are a nonprofit organization working directly with TEA to implement these pilot programs. For today's webinar, we're going to learn and understand the purpose, components, and benefits of CRIMSI, which again is Decision 1A. We'll discover and explore critical CRIMSI roles and responsibilities. We'll evaluate and determine fitness for the CRIMSI model through analysis of assurances, and we'll identify and define essential next steps to apply for the CRIMSI pilot program. Let's start with the purpose and an overview of the pilot. As we know, COVID-19 erased years of improvement in both reading and math for Texas students, with especially steep declines in math. And while we have seen a rebound in STAR results, we still have further to go, making it even more important to accelerate student learning, which is a large purpose of the CRIMSI pilot. Given the significant learning loss from COVID-19 and the historical gaps in academic outcomes, TEA really wants to make significant changes to catch students up. So to do so, we know it will take ensuring teachers are equipped to deliver excellent instructions, that students have access to rigorous instructional materials, and that we can spend more time for students most in need. So this year, LASO Decision 1 funding will support LEAs with implementing core approved products in K-5 RLA and math. These products include Amplify Texas for both ELAR and SLAR, and Eureka Math products. Please note that LEAs preparing to implement core approved products after 2023-24 can apply to option 2 Strong Foundations planning. Within the Strong Foundations implementation supports for 2023-2024, there will be 3 options. The first is Decision 1A, CRIMSI. The COVID Recovery Instructional Materials Support Initiative, or CRIMSI, provides high-quality professional learning directly to teachers, coaches, and administrators through asynchronous modules and live virtual communities of practice. Decision 1B, which is CRIMSI Local Implementation, is a train of trainers model, and it provides high-quality professional learning directly to coaches and administrators through asynchronous modules and live virtual communities of practice. But then coaches and administrators provide supports to teachers locally. And then the final is Decision 1C, which is the ESC Strong Foundations Implementation Support. This provides high-quality professional learning directly to teachers, coaches, and administrators through asynchronous modules and live virtual and/or in-person job-embedded supports delivered by your Education Service Center. We know you may be wondering what exactly is the difference between CRIMSI and CRIMSI Local Implementation. So CRIMSI Local Implementation is a training of trainers model in which professional learning for teachers is provided locally by LEA leaders and coaches. So LEAs will have access to the same asynchronous modules that teachers in CRIMSIs are receiving, but have flexibilities on when teachers complete the modules, how they participate in the modules as well. Teachers also participate in the same communities of practice as CRIMSI, but they are facilitated in person locally by LEA leaders and coaches. Some other notable differences between CRIMSI and CRIMSI local implementation are that CRIMSI comes with print materials and stipends for teachers and coaches who participate in the pilot. For CRIMSI local implementation, campuses will have to self-print or self-purchase print materials and manipulatives, and stipends are dispersed to coaches only. In today's webinar, we will dial into understanding more about the CRIMSI pilot, which again is decision 1A. Through this decision, TEA intends to accelerate learning for students, provide the opportunity for districts and schools to implement high-quality instructional materials, and provide professional learning and other supports to teachers, coaches, and leaders to support the successful implementation of high-quality instructional materials. Participating LEAs will identify local staff to fill critical roles. The roles in bold are specific to the pilot. As we get into more detail about CRIMSI, you can begin to think about who will fill these roles. At the district level, an initiative lead will serve as the overall leader of the pilot. Registration leads will be responsible for ensuring all pilot participants are fully registered for the pilot. And in larger districts piloting multiple products leads can provide leadership for coaches and teachers who are working on each product. There's also senior district leaders who will play a critical role and will participate in the pilot through LASO communities of practice. At the school level, school leaders and coaches are essential pilot participants. And on the classroom level, identifying which teachers and students will be working with pilot materials is an essential responsibility. With that, CRIMSI also includes several supports. For starters, we provide district and campus leaders with pre-implementation planning and ongoing implementation and progress monitoring supports to monitor the fidelity of implementation of materials. We provide print materials for teachers and students, in addition to digital access to the materials. As we stated previously, there's also stipends for teachers and coaches. And finally, there is high quality professional learning provided directly to teachers and coaches and administrators, and communities of practice for district leaders as well. Let's talk a little bit more about that high quality professional development. For starters, district implementation teams have access to a variety of supports. We use readiness and progress assessments to identify differentiated supports in advising. This support may be provided through opportunities to collaborate with other districts implementing the same materials, or through individualized supports from a dedicated CRIMSI implementation advisor. At the start of the pilot, CRIMSI advisors support each district to set up local systems that would lead to a successful pilot. Our high quality professional learning is rooted in the adult learning theory and practice. It is interactive, engaging, multi-tiered, and aligned to high quality instructional materials, research-based instructional strategies, and data. CRIMSI professional learning includes interactive asynchronous modules, which may be fully asynchronous or have a combination of live virtual sessions via Zoom. Communities of practice also offer opportunities for participants to interact with their peers and tackle problems of practice. And then the cycles of continuous improvement guide district leaders to track the progress of the pilot. And then we have flex consultations, which provide opportunities to get one-on-one support to LEAs from their advisors. Our collective learning includes blended learning modules centered on key topics for implementation. These topics include an introduction to high-quality instructional materials and its impact on learning and learning acceleration, understanding content-specific research-based instructional strategies, deep diving into product design, product components, and alignment to the TEKS, effectively planning for instruction, supporting all learners using curriculum-embedded supports and scaffolds, effectively delivering instruction, using curriculum-embedded formative and summative assessments, and analyzing and responding to student work and data. Additionally, the CRIMSI Collective Learning introduces key implementation protocols to support teachers in high-quality instruction using those materials. These protocols support teachers in effectively utilizing those high-quality instructional materials to improve student learning. The first is the unit and lesson internalization protocols. These protocols support teachers in studying the actual units and lessons they will teach. The internalization protocols support teachers in deeply understanding the unit or lesson and its connections to the standards, the learning for the year, and prior learning. Completing the task as a student based on the learning in the unit or the lesson to understand what is being asked of students and identify potential misconceptions. They'll also identify opportunities to monitor and respond to student progress and understand how to use the embedded scaffolds and extensions to support all learners in meeting the level of rigor in the instructional materials. The lesson rehearsal protocol then builds on internalization to support execution. Lesson rehearsal is a facilitated process in which teachers identify a key learning moment in an upcoming lesson and then actually deliver that part of the lesson as if they were in front of their students. Teachers then receive actionable feedback on how to improve instruction and then re-rehearse to execute on that feedback to ultimately ensure that the first teach is the best teach. And then finally, the student work analysis protocol supports teachers in analyzing student work in addition to analyzing student data. High quality instructional materials include student tasks frequently and require students to explain their thinking and complete rigorous tasks such as writing in response to text or tackling complex math or science problems. The student work analysis protocol supports teachers in deeply understanding student tasks and exemplar student responses, collecting, analyzing, and sorting student work to identify trends, and identifying action steps for whole group and student subgroups in upcoming lessons to address those misconceptions identified through the student work analysis protocol. Here's an example of what these protocols look like. The protocols include short, simple, sticky teacher versions with bite-sized steps to reduce the cognitive load for teachers implementing new materials and can be done within a 45-minute planning period. There's also a more in-depth coach guide providing guidance for introducing and supporting each step, including recommended timing, with more advanced guidance to support a gradual increase in complexity of internalization as teachers gain familiarity with the materials. And then protocols have consistent steps and terminology across products to make it more manageable for teachers, coaches, and leaders who are implementing multiple products. The Strong Foundations implementation supports also require commitment to district and school level assurances to ensure enabling conditions for high quality instructional materials implementation. The assurances that we will review next help LEAs determine implementation readiness. The first assurance is approval by a superintendent or CAO or an equivalent leader. There's also the appointment of initiative lead as the primary point of contact and submission of at least one additional point of contact that we can reach out throughout the year. There's the participation of at least one school leader per participating campus. We recommend that this is the principal. And then the participation of at least one coach per high quality instructional materials. Coaches may include instructional specialists, administrators, leaders, or other individuals directly supporting teachers with the pilot. Districts participating in CRIMSI also have to follow the year-long scope and sequence for each high-quality instructional material. They must meet the minimum number of instructional minutes for each material. They must use the curriculum embedded in assessments. They have to ensure that their participants attend all required professional learning and ensure that teachers have sufficient time planning to be able to use the required protocols. Additionally, there's a submission of participant registration information by the deadline, submission of all required data, ensuring teachers have digital access and print access to materials, ensuring participating initiative leads, school leaders, coaches, and teachers complete role-specific assurances, and ensure that senior district leaders are attending those monthly communities of practice. To dive in a little bit more on those teacher and coach level assurances, let's talk about those CRIMSI stipend requirements. So teachers will receive a stipend for completing all pilot requirements. Requirements fall into 4 categories. There's the participation in professional learning and communities of practice and the submission of exit tickets after each of those sessions. You will see that that totals to about 19 seat hours. There's also providing feedback via surveys. These surveys happen 5 times throughout the year and take about 15 minutes to complete. There's the implementation of protocols such as lesson internalization and student work analysis protocol, and the submission of reflections of those protocols. And then the submission of student data from the end of unit or module curriculum embedded assessments. Please note that none of this data that we're collecting is evaluative. We will be using all of this just to improve our CRIMSI pilot program. And then the coaches stipend requires coaches to complete deliverables that fall into 3 categories. The first is participation in professional learning and communities of practice. And again, the submission of exit tickets from each of these sessions that totals to about 24 seat hours. Providing feedback via surveys, which again happen 5 times a year and take about 15 minutes to complete. And then the implementation of monthly practices and protocols. Theirs includes lesson internalization, lesson rehearsal, student work analysis, and observations of classrooms. Again, would like to note that this data is not evaluative. Teachers and coaches who complete all pilot requirements will receive a stipend and 20 to 30 hours worth of continuing professional education hours for up to 2 pilot products. Participants will receive stipend disbursements in December and in June, and they'll receive documentation of their continuing professional education hours in June. Let's look at the full timeline for what CRIMSI implementation looks like for the 23-24 academic year. Here's what our year together will look like at a high level. We'll dive into each of these phases and what is required for you and your participants in each phase. Districts that are awarded the CRIMSI local implementation model as part of the LASO program, again, that's decision 1A, will first begin with initial registration and orientation. In this phase, the initiative lead and other key district leaders will attend a 60-minute orientation webinar. Following the webinar, the initiative lead will enroll in the initiative lead course in TEA Learn and complete a readiness survey to share information about goals for the pilot and current district structures, policies, and procedures that will be involved in the pilot. Initiative leads will then schedule a 45-minute beginning of initiative consultation with a CRIMSI advisor to discuss the specifics of the initiative and determine differentiated supports that may be needed throughout the pilot year. At this time, initiative leads will also complete the initial registration of participants, including the number of school leaders and coaches and teachers for each product and campus. District implementation teams are then provided with supports throughout the year. This includes the pre-implementation planning. During this phase, district implementation teams will receive those differentiated supports on the district and campus level, to support with barriers and develop enablers to implementation based on that readiness assessment they submitted. There's also 2 periods of required consultations for all participating districts. The first is at the beginning of the pilot, and the second is at the midpoint of the pilot. CRIMSI advisors are also available throughout the year for flex consultation as needed to provide more one-on-one support. In addition to that individual support, districts and school leaders will participate in progress check-ins, where they will have opportunities to collaborate with other participating districts to monitor progress on the pilot. These are spread throughout the school year to allow for cycles of continuous improvement. Professional learning is also provided at key points throughout the year. During the onboarding phase, which is prior to implementation of materials, leaders, coaches, and teachers will participate in an orientation to the pilot, a virtual introduction to the product, and a series of virtual sessions, either focused on district and campus level systems for leaders or focused on core protocols and product components for coaches and teachers. These sessions will be offered multiple times as live virtual sessions, and then asynchronous versions will also be available for those who are unable to attend the live session. You can see for the teacher sessions as well, we offer the opportunity for the teachers' versions of onboarding sessions to be provided to districts to then turnkey those for use with your teachers. During the school year, coaches will participate in 6 additional learning modules provided through the TEA Learn platform, and they will attend 6 meetings with peers to apply the learning from modules and discuss problem of practices. Similarly, teachers will participate in 4 additional learning modules provided asynchronously through the TEA Learn platform and attend 4 live community of practice meetings with peers via Zoom to apply the learning from modules and discuss problems of practice. During this time, coaches and teachers may also access optional asynchronous modules on additional topics of interest. Throughout the year, senior district leaders will attend their own communities of practice with fellow LASO districts. These will take place monthly beginning in April. And then finally, as part of the pilot, we will collect data from all participating districts to inform continuous efforts. At key points in the year, leaders, coaches, and teachers will submit data in the form of feedback surveys, protocol reflection forms, observations of instructions for coaches, and then student assessment data from end of unit or module assessments for teachers. To do all this requires significant people to come together to handle various roles and responsibilities. The first is the initiative lead role. The CRIMSI initiative lead will serve as the main point of contact for the pilot in your district and play a critical role in managing and monitoring pilot implementation. The initiative lead can be a different leader than the individual listed as the contact in your LASO application. When you are determining who should serve in the role of initiative lead, keep in mind that implementing new materials can be challenging, and high-quality instructional materials may represent very different instructional practices from what your teachers and coaches are used to. There are a few critical practices that can be put into place before the start of the pilot to set up the conditions for success that will ensure teachers and students receive the most benefit from use of the materials. The elements listed here fit together like a puzzle to create these conditions for success and anticipate challenges that could present barriers to effective instruction for students. As a CRIMSI initiative lead, they are responsible for establishing a positive and joyful culture for the pilot, providing clear communication of the why in order to build investment and a sense of urgency around the pilot, establishing conditions for successful implementation of the pilot, including understanding those best practices for implementation of high quality instructional materials, and ensuring the systems and structures to support high fidelity of implementation are in place. Each district will be assigned a cohort and a CRIMSI advisor based on their district needs. So during that time, you will engage in beginning of pilot consultations with the CRIMSI advisor, and the initiative lead will be the person that's responsible for engaging in those ongoing consultations. Finally, as an initiative lead, they will be responsible for monitoring participation of pilot leaders, coaches, and teachers in the district and serve as the first point of contact for their participants. We're also asking that you have a registration lead. This person will be responsible for identifying pilot participants and getting them registered in the pilot. This is an important foundation for the success of the pilot. So this year, we have identified a specific role to serve as that lead for registration. This person may be the same as the initiative lead or may be different, but they're really responsible for ensuring that they have the participant's legal name and district provided email address, and then their school name, subject area, and grade placement. In addition to those roles, there are several other important roles to support effective implementation. District leaders are additional leaders supporting high fidelity of implementation at the systems level. This could include leading implementation for a specific product or supporting print and digital access or operations. For instance, the technology person may support with assisting us in whitelisting a lot of our CRIMSI systems so that participants are receiving emails and access to resources. School leaders support the high fidelity implementation at the school level and will be receiving ongoing professional learning around change management and monitoring implementation. These individuals are required to participate in those ongoing professional development, but each district is required to designate at least one school leader per participating campus to participate in that learning. Coaches will serve as the primary direct support provider for teachers and will receive ongoing product-specific professional learning on supporting teachers and implementing the new instructional materials with fidelity. These coaches may be instructional coaches, district or school leaders, or administrators, or other roles that can commit to leading key protocols and practices and observing and debriefing with pilot teachers on a consistent basis. Coaches may support up to 2 products, and districts must register at least 1 coach per product. School leaders may also serve in the role of a school leader and a coach. Finally, teachers are implementing the high-quality instructional materials with at least 1 class of students. Here are the next steps for the LASO application. So, the LASO application opened on November 7th. Your superintendent should have received a unique application link emailed directly to them. However, you can request an additional link be sent. We've also launched the Strong Foundations Implementation Support webpage for you to receive all these resources. And we'll drop the link to that webpage in the chat in a second. The application closes very soon on December 22nd, so we hope that you have gotten started. To support you with making the decision for your LASO application, we have ongoing webinars and office hours around those decision points. You can find all of those webinars and office hours times and links on the Strong Foundations website, which was just shared in the chat. If you have any additional questions, you can email strongfoundations@tea.texas.gov or lasso@tea.texas.gov. And you can also explore the FAQ dashboard, which we will put the link to the FAQs in the chat as well. With that said, that is the end of our webinar, but if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or using the Q&A feature so that we can answer them at this time.